Welcome back to the deep dive. It is so good to have you with us today.
Great to be here.
We are tackling a topic that, quite honestly, I think I needed just as much as anyone listening.
I think we all do.
It's about a specific kind of exhaustion. You know the one I'm talking about, right?
I know it well.
It's like 6:00 p.m. on a Tuesday. You are absolutely wiped out. Your brain is fried. You feel like you've been sprinting a marathon since the alarm went off.
It's a very, very familiar feeling. You've been running all day.
But here is the kicker. When you actually sit down and try to list what you built that day or what you fundamentally changed,
There's nothing there.
the list is empty. You were just running on a hamster wheel, lots of sweat, lots of motion, but zero actual displacement.
It is the universal modern condition, I think. We are drowning in activity, but starving for meaningful accomplishment.
Firm for it.
We're just confusing being busy
Yeah.
with being effective.
Exactly. And that distinction, busy versus effective, that is what we are taking apart today. We are diving into a concept that sounds so simple on the surface, but it's really a total paradigm shift in how we approach our lives.
It really is.
We're talking about putting first things first.
And just to set the stage right out of the gate, this isn't a life hack episode. We aren't going to tell you to download a new to-do list app or learn some new keyboard shortcut for your email.
Or wake up at 4 a.m. to take an ice bath. Thank goodness for that.
Right. None of that. This is deeper. This is drawn from a stack of really heavy-hitting literature we've pulled together for this deep dive.
Okay, so what are we looking at?
We are centering largely on Stephen Covey's masterpiece, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, specifically Habit 3. But to keep it modern, we've layered in interpretations from The Art of Manliness, Personal Excellence, and some of the modern training materials from the Franklin Covey Institute as well.
And there is a thread that connects all these sources that I found kind of terrifying, actually.
Yeah, what's that?
It's this idea that time management, the thing we are all obsessed with, is actually a myth.
It's a total misnomer.
Right.
You cannot manage time. Time is constant. It ticks away at the exact same rate for the billionaire's CEO and for the struggling student. It is completely indifferent to you.
So you can't manage time.
You can only manage yourself.
That is a daunting thought. It puts all the responsibilities squarely in the mirror.
It does, but it's also incredibly empowering. If you can't control time, you stop trying to find time, and you start realizing you have to make time.
Okay, so that's the mission here.
The mission for this deep dive is to help you move from a reactive state, where you're just fighting fires and swatting away notifications like mosquitoes, to a truly proactive state.
Okay, I like that.
It's about building the life you actually want, rather than just surviving the one you happen to have.
I am so ready for this. I feel like my life is currently a series of small fires that I'm desperately trying to put out with a water pistol.
A very common feeling.
So let's unpack this. If we want to stop reacting and start building, where do we start? What's step one?
We have to start with the core conflict that defines our days. It's a battle between two concepts that sound similar, but are actually mortal enemies: the urgent and the important.
Okay, urgent versus important. I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second, because to me, those often feel like synonyms.
Yeah.
If my boss emails me with a request, that feels urgent and important. If my tire blows out on the highway, that's urgent and important.
And that conflation, mixing those two up, is exactly where the trap lies.
Okay, so separate them for me.
Let's distinguish them surgically.
Hmm.
Urgent means it requires immediate attention. It acts on you. It's the ringing phone. It's the crying baby. It's the notification pinging on your screen. It is right in your face.
It's loud. It demands a reaction now.
Precisely. It screams now and now. Now, important is completely different. Importance has absolutely nothing to do with speed or noise. Important things have to do with results. Something is important if it contributes to your mission, your values, and your high-priority goals.
So urgent is about time, and important is about value.
That is the perfect way to put it. And here is the catch that trips literally everyone up.
Important matters that are not urgent require more initiative. They require proactivity.
What do you mean?
We must act on them because they will never act on us.
Ah, I see. So going to the gym is the classic example here.
The perfect one.
It's important for my long-term health, but the gym is never going to call me up and scream, if you don't get on the treadmill in the next 5 minutes, the world is going to end.
Exactly. If you ignore the gym today, nothing terrible happens immediately. The sky doesn't fall.
Right.
But if you ignore the ringing phone, the urgent thing, the noise continues. It compels a reaction. And because we are biologically wired to respond to stimuli, We naturally gravitate toward the urgent, even if it's totally trivial.
We prioritize the noise over the value.
We prioritize the noise over the value.
Yeah.
Every time. That hits home. Wow. Okay, so to help us visualize this, the sources all point to a specific tool. It's famous for a reason. The Eisenhower matrix, or the time management matrix.
Yes, this is the foundational framework. I want you, the listener, to just visualize a square. Now divide that square into 4 boxes, a standard 2x2 matrix.
Okay.
On the left side, you have urgent at the top and not urgent at the bottom. Across the top, you have important on the left and not important on the right.
Okay, let's walk through these 4 quadrants because this is where the diagnosis of our lives really happens. Let's start with the top left, quadrant I.
Quadrant I is urgent and important. We call this the quadrant of necessity.
Give us the roster for this box. What kind of things live here?
Crises, pressing deadlines, medical emergencies, the server crashing at work, a crying infant who needs to be fed. These are things that matter. They are important, but they're also screaming for immediate attention.
Right. You can't exactly ignore a server crash and say, you know what? I'm focusing on my long-term strategy right now.
No, you have to deal with it. This is firefighting. And the reality is, we all have to spend time here. Life is unpredictable. Things happen.
Of course.
But the problem isn't visiting Quadrant I. The problem is living there.
What happens to a person who lives in quadrant 1?
Burnout.
Yep.
Pure and simple. If you are constantly operating in crisis mode, your body is just flooded with cortisol. You're jumping from one deadline to the next.
But you feel productive, right?
You might feel productive because you're saving the day over and over, but you're actually just treading water. You aren't building anything new. You're just preventing the whole thing from collapsing.
That sounds absolutely exhausting. Okay, so let's move to the bottom left, quadrant 3rd. This one is urgent, but not important.
Ah, yes. My personal favorite, the quadrant of deception.
Why deception? That sounds ominous.
It is ominous because it tricks you. The urgency makes these things feel important. But if you step back and really look at your actual goals, these things don't contribute to them at all.
Give me some examples of this fake importance. I feel like this is a big one.
Oh, it's huge. It's the interruption from a coworker asking, hey, you got a minute? When you're deep in focus.
Yep.
It's a lot of the emails that you're CC'd on but don't actually need to read. It's the meeting that has no agenda.
Oh, the meeting with no agenda? The worst.
It's very often other people's priorities masquerading as your own.
This is the fake productivity zone. I feel like this is where I've spent a huge chunk of my career.
Most of us do.
I answer 50 emails that didn't really need my input. I sit in 3 meetings where I didn't say a single word, and I go home feeling like I worked so hard, but I didn't actually move the needle on my own projects, not 1 inch.
You nail it. You get the little dopamine hit of checking a box. I answered the email, but the box was empty. It had no real value. And this is so dangerous because it feels like real work.
Okay, so that's deception.
Yeah.
Now, the bottom right, quadrant the 4th. This one is not urgent and not important.
The quadrant of waste.
Doom scrolling on social media.
Precisely. Mindless TV, excessive gaming, gossiping at the water cooler, busy work just to look busy. This is pure escapism.
It's the brain off zone.
But here is the fascinating insight from the sources on this. People rarely go to Quadrant 4th because they want to be lazy. They go there because they're escaping Quadrant the 4.
Oh, that makes so much sense. You don't come home from a day of putting out fires and screaming deadlines and say, you know what, I'm going to learn a new language now.
Never.
You say, my brain is broken, give me the remote and a bag of chips.
Exactly. It's a survival mechanism. You're just fried. So you swing from crisis to zombie. But the problem is, while you are in Quadrant the 4th, you aren't preparing for the future, so more crises build up.
Which sends you right back to Quadrant I the next day.
It's a vicious, exhausting cycle.
So we have necessity, deception, and waste. That leaves one box, the top right, Quadrant 2. Important, but not urgent.
This is it. This is the Holy Grail, the quadrant of quality.
So what lives here? What does this look like?
This is the zone of high leverage, relationship building, strategic planning for your career, exercise, learning a new skill, writing a personal mission statement, preventative maintenance on your car or your health.
So it's all the stuff we know we should do, but we never have time for because it's not screaming at us.
Yes. And here's the key takeaway from Covey and all the other literature. Quadrant 2's is the zone of prevention.
What do you mean by that?
If you spend more time here, say, doing regular maintenance on your car, which is important but not urgent, you prevent the breakdown on the side of the road, which is urgent and important, and forces you into quadrant 1.
Ah, that is the shift. If I spend time planning the project properly in quadrant 2.
You don't have the last-minute panic deadline in quadrant 1.
I get it.
The goal isn't just to get better at handling the crises, it's to shrink the number of crises by getting ahead of them. The first things we're talking about are almost always quadrant 2 activities.
Okay, so we know we need to live in quadrant 2. We need to be proactive, not reactive. But this brings up a huge question. Before we can schedule the important things, we have to actually know what they are for us personally.
Right. You can't prioritize your schedule if you haven't prioritized your values.
Yeah.
It's like that old saying, if you are climbing the ladder of success, you want to make sure it's leaning against the right wall.
I love that image. So how do we figure out what our first things are? The sources talk about this idea of big rocks.
This is a classic metaphor, and it's worth retelling because it illustrates the math of time so perfectly. Okay, imagine you have a large glass jar, and next to it you have a pile of sand, a pile of small pebbles, and a few big rocks.
Right, okay. The jar is my time, my week.
The jar is your available time in a week, exactly. The sand represents the trivial stuff, mindless scrolling, interruptions, gossip. Quadrant 4th. The pebbles are the necessary daily tasks, commuting, grocery shopping, answering routine emails, sort of quadrant 3.
And the big rocks?
The big rocks are your true priorities. Your health, your family, your major creative work, your strategic goals, all quadrant 2.
And the visual is if you pour the sand and the pebbles into the jar first.
The jar fills up almost instantly. If you fill your week with interruptions and busy work first, there is literally no room left for the big rocks. If you try to force them in at the end, they won't fit. You'll say, I just don't have time to exercise.
But if you reverse it...
If you put the big rocks in the empty jar first, they fit. Then you pour the pebbles in and they just roll around and fill the spaces between the rocks.
Okay.
You pour the sand in and it fills all the tiny little gaps. You can fit it all, but only if the order is correct. First things must come first.
So step 1 isn't buy a new planner. Step 1 is identify your rocks.
Exactly.
How do we do that practically? Because I think a lot of people sleepwalk through this part. They just think, well, my job's a rock, and they stop there.
The sources suggest a really specific and powerful method for this. Role-based planning.
Role-based.
Instead of just writing a giant, messy to-do list, which is usually reactive, you look at your life through the different hats you wear, the different roles you play.
Okay, so I'm not just employee.
Right. You are an individual with your own health and growth needs. You are a parent. You are a partner. You are a team leader. You are a friend. You are a community member.
That shifts the perspective immediately. Instead of, what do I have to do? It becomes, what does being a good partner require of me this week?
Precisely. And here's the powerful question from the Franklin Covey material. For each of your key roles, ask yourself this. What is the one thing I could do in this role this week that would make a tremendous positive difference?
Just one thing, not 10.
Just one. If you ask that for your role as parent, the answer usually isn't drive them to soccer practice. That's a pebble. That's just maintenance.
Right.
The answer might be have a real one-on-one conversation with my teenager about their future. That is a big rock. That is pure quadrant 2.
And usually those answers are things that if you don't explicitly schedule them, they simply won't happen. They will absolutely be displaced by the sand.
100%. And the Personal Excellence source talks about this as the antidote to sleepwalking. Most of us are living lives that don't match our internal convictions because we never stop to define what those convictions actually look like in action. Identifying your big rocks stops the sleepwalking.
It's all about alignment. If I say my family is my #1 priority, but I spend 60 hours at work and 10 hours on a hobby and only 2 hours of real focused time with my kids, my calendar is calling me a liar.
That is a harsh truth, but yes,
Yeah.
your calendar never lies. It shows what you actually value, not what you say you value.
Okay, so we have the framework, the matrix, we have the why or big rocks in our roles. Now let's get tactical. Because Monday morning is coming and the sand is going to start pouring in whether we want it to or not.
It always does.
How do we actually put this into practice?
The biggest tactical shift the literature recommends, and this is a total game changer, is moving from daily planning to weekly planning.
Why weekly? I feel like I live my life day to day, hour to hour. A week feels like a long time to predict.
Daily planning is too narrow. It keeps you down in the weeds, focus on what's right in front of your face, which is always the urgent stuff. If you only plan for today, you will always prioritize the loudest things.
Okay.
But weekly planning provides enough perspective to see the big rocks and fit them in, yet it's close enough to be actionable and realistic. It's the perfect horizon.
So walk us through a weekly planning session. When do we do this? What does it look like?
The recommendation is usually Sunday evening or maybe first thing Monday morning before the chaos of the week starts.
Before the emails start flooding in.
Exactly. You sit down for maybe 20 or 30 minutes. Step one, reconnect with your roles and goals. Look at them. Remind yourself what matters.
Okay.
Step two, identify those big rocks we talked about. Look at your roles and decide on maybe 8 to 10 rocks total for the whole week across all your roles.
So this week, as a partner, I will plan a date night. This week, as a manager, I will finish the first draft of the strategic brief.
Perfect. Step three is the magic moment. You schedule them, you open your calendar, your digital calendar, your paper planner, whatever, and you physically block out time for those rocks before you put anything else in.
So if my big rock is write the proposal, I put a 2-hour block in the calendar for Tuesday morning before I even check what emails came in over the weekend.
Precisely. The catchphrase here is absolutely critical. Don't prioritize what's on your schedule. Schedule your priorities.
That sounds so simple, but it is actively fighting against the current of modern life, isn't it?
It is a revolutionary act in today's world. Once you have those blocks in place, then you let the rest of the week fill in. The meetings, the emails, the errands, that's the sand.
Yeah.
They will fill the empty spaces around your rocks.
Another tactic the sources mention, and I've heard this one before, but I'm terrible at actually doing it, is eat the frog.
Yes, the classic Mark Twain reference. If it's your job to eat a frog, it's best to do it first thing in the morning.
And if it's your job to eat 2 frogs, eat the bigger one first.
Right. This relates to the front-loading concept from the Art of Manliness source. The idea is to tackle your most important and maybe most difficult quadrant 2 task first thing in the morning. Your frog.
Why morning? Aside from just getting the unpleasantness over with.
It's about energy management and defense. In the morning, generally, your mental energy is at its highest. Your willpower battery is fully charged. You have the most focus.
Makes sense.
But more importantly, the chaos of the day hasn't started yet. No one has derailed you with a got-a-minute request at 8 a.m. You have this clean, protected slate.
That's so true. The entropy of the universe just increases as the day goes on. It gets messier and messier.
Exactly. If you schedule your most important creative work for 4:00 p.m., you're basically betting that nothing crazy will happen between 9:00 and 4:00 p.m. That is a bad bet.
A terrible bet.
So you defend that morning block with your life.
The sources also mention including mental or spiritual exercise in that morning routine, right? This is what Covey calls sharpening the saw.
Yes. And this is so important, whether it's meditation, prayer, reading something inspiring, or just 5 minutes of silence with a cup of coffee. It sets a proactive tone for the entire day.
Instead of a reactive one?
Think about it. If the very first thing you do when you wake up is grab your phone and scroll through bad news and stressful work emails, you are immediately putting your brain in a reactive defensive state. You are letting the world dictate your mood from the first second you're awake.
Guilty as charged. There's also this concept of the domino effect from the Grok source. How does that fit into the planning?
This is a fascinating layer on top of it. It asks you to look for the lead domino. When you're looking at your task list, you ask, what is the one task that, if I completed it, would make a bunch of other tasks on my list either easier or completely unnecessary?
Can you give me a concrete example of that?
Sure. Let's say you have 5 different meetings this week to explain a new project to 5 different stakeholders. That's 5 hours of your time, right?
Right. 5 blocks in the calendar.
The lead domino task might be record a 10-minute video walkthrough of the project and send it to all of them with a clear summary.
Oh, I see. So that one task, recording the video, potentially eliminates the need for all 5 of those meetings.
Exactly. Recording the video is a quadrant 2 activity. It takes initiative. It's not urgent in the sense that no one asked you for a video, but doing it saves you 5 hours of quadrant through meetings. That is incredibly high leverage.
Okay, I want to address the elephant in the room. This all sounds beautiful in theory. I can picture my perfectly color-coded calendar with my big rock scheduled and my morning frog eating session.
That's a nice picture.
But then, reality hits. My boss walks into my office with a crisis. My kid gets sick and has to come home from school. The emails just don't stop. How do we handle the constant onslaught of quadrant third, the urgent but not important stuff, without getting fired or, being hated by everyone?
This brings us to section 4, the art of saying no. And this is, without a doubt, the hardest skill for most people to master.
I have a chronic disease to please. I'm not kidding. Saying no is physically painful for me. I feel like I'm letting people down every time.
You are not alone in that. But remember, quadrant third is the quadrant of deception. It feels good to say yes and be helpful and be the hero, but you have to realize the trade-off.
What's the trade-off?
Every single time you say yes to something unimportant, you are simultaneously saying no to something important.
Oof. But that way it stings a lot more.
If you say yes to joining the committee meeting that has no agenda and nothing to do with your core role, you are saying no to the strategic planning time you had blocked out.
Yeah.
You are saying no to leaving work on time to have dinner with your family.
You're saying no to your big rocks.
You are saying no to your own effectiveness.
So how do we do it? How do we say no without being a jerk or seeming unhelpful?
It's about setting clear, respectful boundaries. And Covey suggests a technique that is really effective. It's like a yes, no, yes sandwich.
Okay, tell me more.
You start with a yes affirming the person or the relationship. Then comes the no politely refusing the request based on a higher pre-existing priority. Then you end with another yes offering an alternative or a different way to help.
Give me a script. My boss asks me to join a random brainstorming session that starts in 10 minutes, but I'm right in the middle of my big rock project time that I blocked out.
Okay. You can say something like, thanks so much for thinking of me for this. I would love to help the team with that.
Yeah.
That's the yes.
Okay.
However, I am heads down on this proposal that needs to go out to the client today, and I really want to ensure it's perfect. That's the no justified by a higher priority.
Right. You're not just saying I don't feel like it.
Exactly. Then you finish with, can I swing by your desk this afternoon to get the summary and send you my thoughts via email instead? That's the closing. Yes.
That sounds incredibly professional. It doesn't sound like I don't want to. It sounds like I am prioritizing my actual work to a high standard.
And most reasonable bosses will respect that. You are demonstrating focus and reliability. The problem is when we say yes to everything, we become reliable for being available, but unreliable for actually being effective at our core job.
That's a huge distinction. Being always available is actually a weakness, not a strength.
It is. And sometimes it's not even about saying no, it's about delegation. The sources from Gemini and Copilot really highlight this. If something is urgent but not important to you, you have to ask yourself, is there someone else for whom this task is important, or someone who's better suited to do it?
We often hoard tasks because we have that thought, it's just faster if I do it myself.
Which is a classic quadrant trap. Training someone else takes time up front. That's a quadrant 2 investment, but it saves you that time forever into the future.
Now, what about quadrant fourth? The total waste of time. The scrolling, the mindless stuff. You mentioned earlier that this is often a symptom of burnout. How do we eliminate it?
Self-awareness is absolutely key here. You have to notice the trigger. Why are you opening Instagram at 2:00 p.m. on a Wednesday? Is it really because you care about what your high school friend ate for lunch?
No, never. It's usually because I'm staring at a difficult task, a big scary frog, and I'm feeling anxious or bored, and the phone is just this shiny little escape hatch.
Right. It's procrastination fuel. Recognizing that the scrolling is a symptom, not the root problem, helps you get back on track.
Yeah.
But the best defense is to design your environment to help you win. Turn off all the non-essential notifications.
The dings and the buzzes.
Every single one. If your phone buzzes, you will look at it. It's a biological imperative. We are primates. We respond to new stimuli. So you have to stop the stimuli at the source.
Put the phone in another room when you're doing deep work.
The single best productivity tip there is.
We really are fighting our own biology sometimes, aren't we? Okay, so let's move to some advanced habits. We've got the basics down, but what takes this to the next level?
I think the first one has to be the Pareto principle, or the 80-20 rule.
Yes, the classic.
The idea is that for many outcomes, roughly 80% of the results come from just 20% of the efforts.
So we need to find that critical 20% and just double down on it.
Yes. Most people operate under the false assumption that all tasks are created equal, that checking off order more Post-it notes feels the same on a to-do list as sign the new $1 million client. But they're absolutely not. High performers identify the few activities that drive the massive results. Those are the big rocks, and they obsess over those.
And here is the liberating part I read in the notes that I loved. They are totally okay with being mediocre at the other 80%.
Exactly. You cannot be world-class at everything. You have to consciously choose what to be bad at. Maybe you are a world-class salesperson, but you are just terrible at filing your expense reports on time. That's a trade-off you should probably accept.
That is permission to be imperfect at the small stuff. I think we kill ourselves trying to get an A+ in everything, including the stuff that just doesn't matter.
Correct. And to sustain that high performance in your top 20%, you need energy. We touched on this with Eat the Frog. But energy management is just as, if not more, important than time management.
The sources mention that we should schedule our most demanding tasks during our peak energy times.
Absolutely. If you are a morning person, that's when you do your deep strategic thinking. Do not waste your peak brain power on answering routine emails. Save the admin work and the busy work for the afternoon slump when your energy is low anyway.
And crucial to this whole conversation, sleep, exercise, and diet are not luxuries.
They're non-negotiable quadrant 2 priorities. They are the foundation of everything else.
That is such a hard pill to swallow for the hustle culture crowd, the people who brag about sleeping 4 hours a night.
If you cut sleep to get more done in quadrant I, you are borrowing time at a very, very high interest rate, and eventually the bank calls in the loan. You pay it back in mistakes, bad moods, and sickness. You simply cannot be effective if you are running on fumes.
Finally, there is the necessity of review and reflect.
You cannot just set this plan once and forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how life works. Life is dynamic. The weekly review is your feedback loop, your course correction system.
So at the end of the week, maybe on a Friday afternoon, you look back.
You ask yourself, did I meet my goals this week? Did I honor my big rocks? Did I spend enough time in quadrant 2? Or did I get sucked back into what some of the sources call the thick of thin things?
The thick of thin things. That is a brilliant phrase for quadrant 3. I love that.
And you have to be flexible. The sources all emphasize that while structure is necessary, rigidity is fatal. True crises, real quadrant of things will happen. You have to handle them.
Right.
But because you've been planning, because you've been working in quadrant 2, you are more resilient and have more capacity when they do occur.
It's like building a buffer. If you're always running at 100% capacity just dealing with junk, one real crisis breaks you completely. If you're organized, you have the capacity to absorb the hit.
That's it exactly. The review isn't about beating yourself up for what went wrong. It's about course correction for next week. It's like an airplane autopilot. It's technically off course 90% of the time, but it's constantly making tiny corrections, so it always lands at the right destination.
This has been, frankly, a little convicting for me, but in a good way, a really good way. So let's wrap this up.
Let's do it.
We started with the Eisenhower matrix learning to identify what is truly important versus what is just urgent. Then we talked about identifying our big rocks and our roles to find our first things.
Then we discussed the tactical power of weekly planning, scheduling your priorities rather than just prioritizing your schedule, and the incredible discipline required to say no to the quadrant 3 distractions.
And realizing that self-care and relationship building are not nice-to-haves or luxuries. They are the very foundation of long-term effectiveness.
At the end of the day, it ultimately comes down to integrity. Integrity to yourself and to your deepest values.
Yeah.
Are you living the life you intend to live, or are you living the life that other people's urgent demands are imposing on you?
That's the big question. So here's our challenge to you, the listener. We want you to start small. Don't try to overhaul your entire life by tomorrow morning.
Right. Just identify one single quadrant 2 activity that you have been neglecting. Maybe it's that health checkup you've been putting off for months. Maybe it's finally sitting down to write that business plan. Maybe it's just a dedicated, no phones allowed date night with your partner.
Identify that one thing, and then open your calendar right now. I'm serious. Pause the audio if you have to, and block out a specific time for it this week.
And treat it as immovable. Treat it like a meeting with the most important CEO you know.
Because in a way, it is. It's a meeting with the CEO of your own life.
Well said.
Do it today. Because, and here's where we want to leave you, a thought to chew on as you go about your week. The sources touch on this idea of looking at your life from the very end, the legacy you want to leave.
It's a heavy thought, but it's a clarifying one. When people stand up at your funeral, they aren't going to talk about how quickly you responded to emails. They aren't going to praise you for how you never missed a meeting, no matter how pointless.
They are going to talk about who you were as a person. They are going to talk about your character, your relationships, your contributions. They are going to talk about your life in quadrant 2.
If you keep prioritizing the urgent over the important, you might get everything done. You might clear your inbox every single day. But at the end of the road, will you have done anything that actually mattered?
That's the difference between efficiency and effectiveness. Don't just be busy, be effective. Thanks for diving in with us.
See you next time.